What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the news affecting the markets, what data is coming out for tomorrow alongside earnings, and all of this could affect Tesla's price action alongside other tickers going into tomorrow and beyond. But before I break anything down with all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. Now, this offer ends in just about 8 days from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. For Tesla, we saw this thing drop pretty hard in the morning, which is something I was talking about that could happen. I was thinking Tesla would bottom around 205 to 208 before a bounce could come. However, instead of bottoming around there for today, we actually went down a little bit lower towards 202.5 as this nice liquidity grab played out. And we broke some key supports from the pre-market on Tesla, SPY, and the QQQ as these institutions and market makers were just trying to grab liquidity and fake out many retail investors before they ended up buying the market. We saw this nice pump today. Tesla still managed to close green. It kind of pumped a bit, came down a little bit as time went on, but still closed in the green, which is not bad. Same thing for Microsoft, Nvda, the QQQ, and most tickers out there. They closed green with a few exceptions. SPY was just barely in the red, very flat, and we managed to get a somewhat red day for AMD. But like I said before, Meta, Google, most of these ended up closing in the green, which is a good sign for tomorrow. But the question is, will we see more upside tomorrow? Are buyers going to be continuing to step in, or are we going to see something very different? I'm going to be breaking all of this down in just a few minutes. Some news about the markets would be the fact that the Nasdaq has snapped the 4-day losing streak as the 10-year Treasury yield is starting to drop. And on top of this, with this news coming out, Bill Ackman has come out and he has basically announced that he's covering his short positions and he may be going long on the market very soon, which is once again another indicator that many institutions, many big players in there who are very experienced are starting to see what may be coming, which is potential upside for the month of November going into December for the markets. And as a reminder, this is the midterm election year chart, but this does apply for all election years. And it's been working pretty well when it comes to seasonality from July to now. It's been playing out very, very nicely, right? You could see the downside from starting in August going all the way down into October. And we tend to bottom. You can see the bottom tends to be near the end of October. That's very close to where we are right now. So it's working out very well. This also suggests upside is coming for the markets very soon. This could be dependent on other factors such as earnings and stuff, but as of right now, this is still on the table and very probable for how we're going to continue. Now, there's no guarantee that the bottom is in for the markets just yet. There's no guarantee whatsoever just yet. So we're going to be watching to see what happens with these earnings for the next couple of days. Now, for tomorrow, we have Coca-Cola announcing earnings. Okay, Coca-Cola is going to be a big one, but not the biggest one. And then after the market closes, we have Microsoft, Alphabet, and Snap. So before open, we have Coke, Verizon, just a couple of others. Then after we have all these others as well. So I'm going to be watching these very carefully. Wednesday has Meta and IBM, and then Thursday has Amazon. We'll be watching to see how Coke affects us. It's not going to be as impactful as like Amazon, but we'll just wait and see. Anyways, for data affecting the markets, we have some very important data coming out. So we have the S&P Global Composite PMI, manufacturing and services data. This just is like a fancy indicator that tells us how the services and manufacturing sectors in the economy are doing. If there are declines, this could cause some downside. If they're decent, this could help the market hold up. So expect some high volatility for the first 15 and 30 minutes of market open for tomorrow. The first 30 minutes will be the most important, so make sure you're very prepared for that. We're going to see possibly some big moves, and we're going to be watching to see how these pieces of data affect the market. So make sure you watch those carefully. We also have the 2-year note auction coming out at 1 p.m. Eastern time. I'm not too sure about how that's going to affect the markets. It tends to be very unpredictable sometimes. But what I will tell you is that it could cause the direction to change. So I'll be talking more about that later on tomorrow. For now, just don't forget 15 minutes and 30 minutes after market open, expect some high volatility as we have the PMI and the Richmond Fed manufacturing reports coming out. Now, for the market's sentiment, right now the market is quite fearful, not as extremely fearful as before. And we're starting to see sentiment improve just a tiny bit, but we're still quite fearful as the market is still very close to these lows. For news affecting Tesla, Tesla has disclosed basically that the DOJ probes over its vehicle range and etc. are still continuing. There are many of these new changes coming out. We're starting to see the Department of Justice investigating Tesla, with some cases even issued for Elon Musk. And they're going to be continuing to look into the FSD, driver assist systems, other things involving their spending and how they're using their current funds. And there are more probes coming out involving just like other things like that. So it's not the end of the world. This news has been coming out for a while, but with this going on, we will see what happens over the next few months, next few weeks, to see if any new updates come. Now, when it comes to Tesla, I just wanted to call out that the price-price ratio is at this low, but very close to the low right here, as we could see buyers stepping in again. What this tells us is that Tesla is still relatively weak compared to the market. It's not super, super strong just yet, but we're starting to see things improve, because once we saw the price-price ratio approach this 0.5 level, we tended to see Tesla kind of like base and try to like improve its price action. So there could be some improvements coming if Tesla maintains these levels. It's moving very similar to that of SPY and also the QQQ. They've been moving very similarly. They both bounced together. All of them bounced together before coming down a bit. SPY ended up just a little weaker at the end, whereas the QQQ held up alongside Tesla. Now, for daily seasonality, Tuesdays tend to be green about 51% of the time for Tesla historically. We tend to see more volatility during the 2 o'clock p.m. session, so right here for Tesla, and also around noon for Eastern time. So expect some volatility during those times tomorrow. And then finally, November tends to be a stronger month for Tesla. October tends to be weak for Tesla, and that is so far playing out very nicely. And that's pretty much it for data. When it comes to financial estimates, things are still looking quite good for the company. Volume was very high, 150 million in volumes. That's a good sign for Tesla. So what do I see developing on the charts? There's a possible inverse head and shoulders like structure on Tesla. We're going to likely see a retracement towards this like 210 area. And if 208 to 210 hold, we could see a bounce and see Tesla start pushing back up towards 220. If we break below 210, we could see 208 coming. And if that fails us, there is a risk of Tesla coming back down to 205. But my guts tells me we're going to see some buyers try to step in, because not only do we have an inverse head and shoulders, but we've got a very nice wick today. We got some nice volume. And when Tesla looks like it's trying to reverse, we're getting some signals off this bullish divergence that formed today. It didn't just form today, it's been forming for the last like couple of trading days. But today it basically confirmed that the bounce was, we were trying to get that balance. We have a nice wick forming, and there's a good structure right here on the 4-hour. The daily looks like it's forming a reversal candlestick that could lead to some upside and an attempt to get back into the 220s. So what do I think is most likely going to happen? Here's my answer, guys. Even though we are looking like we want to bounce on Tesla, I'm going to be open-minded, because with earnings, you never know what's going to happen, right? We have earnings coming out, so be open-minded for anything. But let me break down what's most likely going to happen. So if we're bearish, the bearish case is going to be Tesla breaking below 208. If that breaks, it's going to come down to 205 or below that. If we're bullish, you want to see Tesla maybe like drop it and bounce, or kind of like bounce from here and get above 217. If we manage to achieve that, 220 plus is coming, then 225. What is most likely going to happen? Well, it's just based off technical analysis, guys. This is not extremely sufficient because it depends on earnings, but I'm going to tell you that the most likely thing for Tesla would be this thing kind of like comes down a bit. Maybe they grab more liquidity down here, somewhere around here. Then we see some buyers step in and they start pushing Tesla right back up. And we see Tesla make an attempt to bounce tomorrow again, and we could start to break to higher levels. I think there's a good chance of Tesla potentially doing this, and I could see some upside if we do end up maintaining this inverse head and shoulders, if we do see another liquidity grab, and as long as earnings are decent. So this is the most likely possibility based off technicals, but this will depend on other factors. Make sure you watch these levels and make sure you're prepared and remain as open-minded as possible. I'm going to talk about the QQQ, then SPY after that. So for the QQQ, this is looking quite decent because of the fact that we saw quite a few buyers stepping in. I think this is taking a while to load. There we go. So going back, we have a nice inverse head and shoulders on the QQQ. So right here, nice inverse head and shoulders that's forming. If the QQQ manages to hold 355 or so, maybe a little bit below that, 354 to 355, and we start bouncing, we could see a move towards 361. That's where this imbalance is. So 361 is a real possibility up here. If the QQQ loses 354, there's a risk of it coming back down to 352. All right, so watch those levels carefully. What is the most likely possibility? No, I can't promise anything, guys. Don't forget that. It all depends on earnings. But the odds do favor this coming down a little bit. Maybe another liquidity grab down here towards like 353.5 to 354. Then buyers step in and they try to push this thing up towards 361. We have this imbalance at 362 to 361. So we're going to be watching some potential upside that's possible. Now, once again, we'll see if earnings help this form, but that is a real possibility. On Nvda, let me talk about Nvda first, then SPY after that. Very nice bounce on Nvidia. It's up almost 4%. We were talking about that 407 to 409 area being tested for that bounce. That's exactly where Nvidia ended up going to before the bounce came. Now, we have a possible inverse head and shoulders like structure that could play out possibly, but if Nvidia loses 416.8, we're going to be watching for a push all the way back down towards 410. If Nvidia ends up breaking above the high we made today, we could be looking for a push for 437 to potentially even 440. Now, what's the most likely possibility? In my opinion, we could be seeing an inverse head and shoulders on Nvidia. It looks very probable as we're starting to see the market shifting and buyers are starting to step in with big buy orders, even on Nvidia, lots of large call sweeps. So we could see Nvidia retrace a little bit. I think it's going to retrace off its bearish divergence, come back down towards 420 to 425 or so, and then buyers may try to step in and push this thing all the way back up. So it's very possible we see something like this for the inverse head and shoulders. We're looking quite decent so far. There's a slight bearish divergence here, so it could lead to like a little downside first before the bounce comes, but it's still very possible. Now for SPY, we have something very similar developing. On SPY, I could see a nice inverse head and shoulders on SPY as well because it managed to close above 420, which is a decent sign. Now, if we lose 420 tomorrow, okay, if we fail to hold it, something bad happens. Hey, it could come down to 418 and then we're going to turn bearish. If we hold 420, this thing has potential to make its way back up to 425. We have a slanted inverse head and shoulders like structure. We have a nice bullish divergence right here. So I could see SPY maybe retest 420. It could go a little bit below it temporarily. That's going to be okay. But as long as we get back above it, there is going to be potential for a bounce. All right. So when I say like as long as we hold this level, it does not have to be perfect. Just like how today we came to like 417.8 before we bounced. We basically held 418 through the day though. That's like what happened. It was just another liquidity grab. So watch out for those. So watch for a little drop. We could retest 420, maybe go a little lower. And then if it manages to get right back above 420 and hold it very nicely, there's going to be a nice potential move to the upside coming. And I think the odds favor that. So watch for a bounce. It's still very, very probable. Now, that's pretty much it for Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, and QQQ. Then we're just going to do Aapl on TradingView before I slow down to the other tickers. So for Aapl, I just wanted to call out that Aapl went down to the zone we called out. We were talking about 169 to 170. A bounce should come around there. Aapl bounced off 170, right? Now we have a possible inverse head and shoulders like structure. Aapl needs to hold 172.5. If we hold this, I mean, we could go a tiny bit below it, but then come right back up. That's going to be fine. But give or take, when it comes to like precision, it doesn't have to be perfect. As long as we hold in this zone in the 172s, Aapl could bounce and start pushing for 175. If we lose 172, there's a risk of it coming back down to 170. All right, so 172 is going to be very key to 172.5. My gut tells me it's going to hold 172 and try to rebound towards 175 very soon. Now, it all depends on earnings and other factors, so I can't promise this with high conviction, but there's a good chance of a drop and then bounce coming to the markets. For the IWM, still not looking the strongest. We could see it decline a bit more. But we're going to be watching to see if 164 holds. If we hold 164.6 to 165, we could see buyers step in to push it towards 167. So watch for a little drop in bounce. It still is very possible. And I think the odds still favor that. As far as Microsoft goes, we have a nice inverse head and shoulders like structure right here. This could push it up towards if 330 breaks, we could see like 335. If we lose 329 or the 200 EMA, then this could come down towards 327. My guts tells me the inverse head and shoulders could hold, and we could see some upside on Microsoft. AMD is trying to base at 100 a share. You could see it right here forming a nice bullish divergence. If we manage to break and hold 100, we could be watching for a push to 102 again. If we end up kind of like popping a bit and we end up failing at 198 is on the table. It's been on a downtrend, still looking kind of weak, but there could be a bounce coming. So we're going to be watching to see if we can try to hold 100. That's where we have some nice support, so watch that very carefully. Netflix came down as we were talking about, but then the buyers stepped in. So it kind of bounced instead. So that was a decent sign. There could be a test of 410 coming. We have a nice bullish wedge potentially forming. 410 is on the table for Netflix. For the VIX, in my opinion, has a possible head and shoulders, if you want to interpret it that way. There's a possible head and shoulders right here that could be developing. You could also interpret it right here. So it could like kind of pop up here and start coming down. We also have a gap down here around this like 18 area. So there is possible downside coming for the VIX off the head and shoulders for a drop. So this could be because of the market potentially pumping. The dollar is looking a little bit more bearish. It's been cooling off quite a bit. We also have a head and shoulders like pattern on the dollar index. It's just a lot bigger. Let me zoom out more just to show it to you. On the 4 hour, there's a possible head and shoulders on the dollar. This could bring it even lower towards that 105 support if we lose 104, 105 support if we lose 105.5. So if we might see a little bounce, a back test of the 200 EMA at 105.7, then a rejection, and it could start cooling off after that. So this could lead to upside in the markets, so watch that very carefully. Coinbase, if we manage to hold these levels, especially as crypto is pumping, there could be a move up towards this 83 to 84 area. There is potential for it if we break 80. So watch and see if that breaks or not. For Google, it's looking a bit more bullish. You could see it got a nice bounce off the 200 EMA. If we break the 50 EMA at 138.57, we could see this thing push up for 140. If we get rejected, it's going to come down to 136. My guts tells me it's going to break and try to get up to 140. The 10-year treasury yield is looking a bit more bearish. It's starting to cool off a bit. This could be leading to some more potential upside for the markets. Amazon is looking a bit more bullish because we have a nice looking market structure shift that's forming on it. It came very close to its support, held 123 nicely. Going to be looking for a 128.6 tomorrow. As we approach earnings, we could see some buyers stepping in. Meta has a nice accumulation formation right here, as we have this trend right here forming this nice shift. And on top of this, let me see right here, there's a possible inverse head and shoulders. We could see this thing retrace towards 311, then bounce for 320 plus very soon. So I'm seeing some potential upside in the markets. Technicals are looking a bit more bullish, but here's the thing. No promises can be made. It depends on earnings and other factors. So yes, I am leaning in the direction of us seeing some upside, but I'm not super convicted. I can't promise anything because once again, anything could happen with these earnings and all the PMI reports. So we'll see what happens, but I'm leaning a bit more bullish going into tomorrow. So watch for some like drops in the morning, then a pop later on. Let's see some buyers stepping in and we'll see what happens as time goes on. All right. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, guys. Enjoy your evening. Enjoy the weekend. Not the weekend, sorry, the rest of the day. The weekend comes a little bit later. But anyways, I'll see everyone soon out there, and please take care. All right. Thank you and peace out.